Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Alex Dvorkin and I'm a managing partner at 4D Capital. We specialize in a very unique mathematical approach to the stock market where we calculate the market or individual stocks in multidimensional space, and when we do, essentially perfect order emerges. This very same mathematical work also allows us to make very accurate geopolitical prediction, and this is what this show is all about. Not only are we going to look at what's going on out there, we're going to look at financial markets and give you the information that is going to be unavailable anywhere else. So the topic of today's show is essentially to suggest that the United States is preparing for a strike either against Venezuela or Russia. Okay, and by the way, this is AI, this is not me. Obviously AI cannot spell Venezuela here or here, but nevertheless, point being is that this is not something you're going to hear or see in mainstream media. Of course, there's a lot of news out there that US is indeed preparing to attack Venezuela, but I'm going to explain to you why I believe this is a diversion and the real strike is coming up and coming up very soon. And the real strike is going to be an attempted decapitation strike against Russia. And I know all the recent news are coming out about possible peace with Ukraine, but I'm once again going to explain to you here today why I believe that sequence of events is essentially a diversion from the real strike that's coming up really soon. And this is where our work really shines. We have a very important time turning point associated with geopolitical wars coming up, and this particular time turning point has to do with the war cycle and the United States. The exact time of this cycle arriving is December 13th of this year, 2025. I typically, because it's a very long cycle that is 84 years, I typically give a two-week time window associated with this cycle, plus or minus 2 weeks as a margin of error. Usually it's greater than that, but for this particular situation, I would give plus or minus 2 weeks. And we are getting very close to this time window. Okay, so the war cycle has to do with December 7th of 1941 and Pearl Harbor. The cycle is incredibly accurate. It predicted the September 11th. Going back to a little bit earlier this year, it predicted the strike against Iran perfectly to the day. So now it is showing up on December 13th, and once again, it is 84-year war cycle associated with the United States that goes back to December 7th of 1941 and Pearl Harbor. As you know, that was a very important date in American history, and this one's going to be as well. Okay, so the question becomes, well, what is going to happen during this period of time? And as of now, I personally believe we have one of two choices. We have either a strike against Venezuela, which is being propagated throughout the news cycle to a great extent, and everybody's very much aware of that, or we're going to have a decapitation strike against Russia, and nobody talking about it. So today's shows, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, I guess I didn't mention the primary focus of our objective of our show is to suggest to you that there's going to be a nuclear exchange between Russia and China alliance and NATO members. But that particular nuclear exchange is going to happen in the summer of 2029. We'll discuss that a little bit later. But for the time being, what's going to happen over the next 6 weeks is going to be of great importance in American history, because I think something really, really bad is going to happen, and that being reflected in the financial markets, and we'll talk about that as well. So what I want to do first is kind of skim through the news cycles as it applies to Venezuela and Ukraine, what's going on today, and then we'll circle back and we'll go over that a little bit in greater detail towards the end of the show, because I believe, once again, what we're witnessing from the Trump administration at this point in time is a diversion as opposed to what's really going on the ground. Okay, so Ukraine, as you know, there's been an approved or suggested peace plan between proposed by the Trump administration between Ukraine and Russia. It's a sweet deal for Russia, in my opinion. It does have a number of territorial concessions for the Ukraine, but we, as you can see from the news here, but Ukraine cut out the Trump Ukraine peace plan love updates. So as you can see here, nothing much is going on. We also have a Venezuelan war cycle, right? It's been kind of put in the kettle and steamed over the last couple of weeks. We were expecting a military strike against Venezuela 2 weeks ago, last weekend, nothing really happening there. There's a talk that the Trump administration is in talks with Venezuela to get Maduro out. There's going to be some sort of a CIA coup against the country. So it's a slow burn kind of a development in terms of Venezuela, but the military buildup continues. We have the aircraft carrier arriving there over the last couple of days. I forgot which one it was, but it's one of the major strike groups. So the word on the street, so to speak, is that the United States is getting ready to attack Venezuela. But what I'm going to talk about it a little bit later is that, once again, I believe it's entirely a diversion. And the diversion is going to be that while everybody else is anticipating a strike against Venezuela, the actual strike, attempted decapitation strike, is being currently prepared against Russia and Russian government. Okay, because this December 13th time turning point is very, very important, very powerful, and it indicates a major turning point in American history. So something significant is going to happen there, and I personally don't believe it's going to be a strike against Venezuela, because while that particular strike can go sideways, it's not as important as what's going on in Ukraine and Russia today. And as you can see, immediately Ukraine rejects U.S. plan. And this is how you know this is a kabuki theater, right? Because the United States is in complete control of this proxy war in Ukraine. It is in complete control of Zelensky and Ukraine, and President Trump can stop this war with one phone call, but they haven't. Instead, the United States is increasing, not the United States, but the proxy. Ukraine is increasing its attacks on Russian facilities, particularly oil facilities, as you can see here on the screen in front of you. So the question becomes why? And the real answer has to do with the fact that they're not interested in ending this war. As we talked about many times before, what the United States is interested in is complete destruction of Russia, and it's then having the ability to break Russia into smaller parts. This has been talked about many times before. This has been published. This has been propagated by a lot of government entities within the United States and the European Union, NATO by default, that's the end goal for Russia, is to take Russia out, do the regime change, break Russia into smaller parts, and then essentially rape and pillage its economy and natural resources. So that's the end objective. That's why the Trump presidency has no interest in going after or in any sort of a peace deal, because that would essentially imply that Ukraine has lost the war, territorial concessions, but more importantly, it allows Russia to gain in terms of its geopolitical stance. Okay, let's put it that way. So let's see. So U.S. pressuring Ukraine to make serious territorial concessions. Once again, nonsense. They can end the war and force Ukraine into territorial concessions with one phone call, but that is not happening. So what you're seeing is kabuki theater once again. U.S. peace plan proposes Ukraine give up. Okay. Once again, not gonna happen. This is not being reported in Western media. I just want to kind of share it with you. So Shoigu, which was the defense minister and probably number two, number three, depending who you ask in Russian government, the person who's responsible or who was in charge. They have a different defense minister now, but he was in charge when the war in Ukraine started. There was an attempted assassination against him. You can read their article, just search for it. There was a bomb, I believe, placed in some sort of a cemetery where he was attending a funeral. So this is yet another indicator that the war is not about to terminate. It's just getting worse and worse with each passing day. Okay, so with that in mind, let me see. And then Germany warns we may have had our last summer of peace before Russia's next war. So everybody in Europe is preparing for war. There's only a few countries, I think. Is it Orban? I think Orban is the one who's he's talking about. Yeah. Orban is the one who's talking about some sort of a peace proposal, or essentially trying to end the war. Everybody else in Europe is gung-ho to go to war against Russia. I don't particularly understand, because Russia can end them all within a 20-minute period of time, but nevertheless, that's what they're driving forwards. Inside the European Union. So Ukraine files QQQ lawsuits. So this is more on the financial side. They've been trying to steal Russian frozen assets for a long time. This would be a complete disaster for the European Union. There are some people stepping in now, some of the big financial institutions, and saying this is going to bring complete chaos, disaster, and collapse in the European Union, financial collapse at the very least. So there's at least a little bit of a pushback, but nevertheless, this is something to pay attention to, because that's what they've been trying to do for over a year, to steal that money, frozen Russian assets, and give it to Ukraine, as if Ukraine needs any more corruption, or it needs any more money to steal from other parties. But once again, this will bring complete annihilation of European financial system, because in essence nobody's going to trust it. Nobody in the world is going to invest in Europe going forward. So at the very least, the good news is there is some pushback against this particular plan, but let's see what these weasels, particularly this woman, is going to be able to accomplish, if anything at all. So let's see what else we have. So this is The Economist, and The Economist is saying, you know, expect a financial collapse, expect war next year, okay? And EU ignoring reality in Ukraine. Obviously, they're losing the war. Ukraine is drowning in the swamp of corruption. Like, this is all coming out like it's news. Everybody knows this. Everybody knew this going back to ever since, you know, Ukraine broke away from the Soviet Union in the 90s, and you know, its corruption has just been getting worse and worse and worse every year. So it's like it's coming out like it's shocking news to the people here in the West. But you know, anybody who follows the situation knows that Ukraine is probably one of the most corrupt nations in the world, and this is no news, right? I don't know why people are making a big deal out of it. Okay, so now we kind of done with Ukraine and talking about Russia for the time being. I'll circle back and I'll go over some of these articles in greater detail and tell you why I believe there's going to be an imminent possible decapitation strike against Russia. Okay, but once again, this has to do with December 13th, time turning point associated with war in the United States. I mentioned before that this particular cycle goes back to exactly December 7th of 1941. Pearl Harbor, as you know, this was the beginning of World War II for the United States, and this cycle arrives on December 13th of this year. I give it plus or minus 2 weeks time window, and with the stock market bouncing, I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. It indicates that we are probably going to be very close to that December 13th time turning point. But essentially what it indicates a very important turning point in the history of the United States that's coming up. And it most likely situation that I personally envision, because of the things that I just mentioned. I think the whole Venezuela situation is a diversion, and the real strike is being prepared as we speak. Because remember, this is the style of this administration, of the Trump administration. Whether it's good or bad is outside of the scope of this particular discussion. You come to your own conclusions, but this is what they do. This was evident with Iran when they were doing the nuclear talks, right before there was a strike on Iran that eliminated some of the leadership. I believe I forgot who they killed, or Israel killed, but they killed a lot of nuclear scientists, I believe, some of the military leadership, and that was done as the quote-unquote peace talks were happening, okay? Same thing happened in Yemen, where they eliminated a large portion of that government. Same thing happened with Hamas, if you remember, and Israel. So this administration essentially does this particular thing. They make you believe, or make the opposing side believe, that there is a negotiation towards peace, as the situation now with Russia. The United States, as you know, proposed this particular peace plan. And by the way, Kellogg, right? This is Guy Kellogg. So he's been the main guy in kind of pushing this peace plan. As you can see, he's about to leave in January. So this is yet another indicator that something that is going on there. But going back, they will essentially propose this fact that there's going to be peace talk with Ukraine and Russia, perhaps territorial concession, moving forward, everything is great, and then there's going to be an attempted decapitation strike against Russia. And this is what I worry about this particular December 13th time turning point, because Russia, first of all, it's insanity, right? It's something out of the art of war, but being done by complete idiots, okay? You do not do a decapitation strike against Russia, because Russia has systems in place that are going to respond. And that particular response is going to be so bad, I believe, that's what's going to mark that December 13th time turning point as a black eye, a black day in the history of the United States. Just as Pearl Harbor was, perhaps Russia is going to respond in a nuclear way, wiping out one of the bases, for example, or in Germany, or throughout the European Union, or somewhere else, or perhaps it's going to be a direct strike at our homeland. So this is definitely something to watch for over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so now let's jump to capital markets. We'll circle back to this war stuff at the end of this show, but a lot of very interesting stuff is happening in the stock market. Let's just go over the headlines very quickly. So stock rate cuts plunge as BLS confirms jobs data will come off after Federal Open Market Committee. So that was yesterday, but as I mentioned before, basically the short end of the yield curve leads the Fed. Always has been, always will be, and this is the two rates that we had over the last couple of months. So as you can see, the decline started before that, and what it was indicating that yes, the Federal Reserve was going to cut 25 basis points, and that's actually what happened. But as you've seen, since early or the end of October here, the rate has gone up a little bit, or once again, the short end of the curve has gone up a little bit and remained flat thereafter, indicating there's going to be no rate cut in December. So that's what we're looking at here. And let's see, so NVDA came out, as you know, with great earnings. The stock is surging, NASDAQ is surging, Dow is surging, everything is surging. And where we were apparently facing the end of the world over the last couple of days, now everything is great again. And we're getting into the fact that, for example, shorting big tech or shorting anything at this point in time is a widow maker, according to one of the traders out there. We'll discuss that as well, but let's go back and look at what's going on in the actual stock market. And so the Dow Jones has bounced quite substantially. NASDAQ, let's look at the NVIDIA here, because we were doing an update in NVIDIA a couple of weeks ago, and then what we said at that time is very important. So this particular line has to do with our mathematical calculations, and at that time we said that the NVIDIA basically hit right into it, and most likely the top is in and it's going to begin its decline. Now, what's saving NVIDIA at this point in time is we had these massive gap downs, one right here, one right here. This one we nearly closed, and most likely we're going to close it over the next couple of days. But nevertheless, what I was trying to tell you is that, let me zoom out here a little bit, but basically NVIDIA has satisfied all of the bull market requirements for its structure, and it is gonna begin to decline going forward into a mid-cycle low that is scheduled for 2026. So It's a very similar situation with Oracle. We talked about Oracle, and it's hitting its top here. So NVIDIA basically kind of completed the same pattern as has Oracle. We were coming out and saying here that Oracle is hitting right into its mathematical top. This particular line, that's mathematical work associated with our calculations. So we once again calculate the market in three-dimensional space when we do perfect order emerges. So you're not going to see this anywhere else, but this is what you're seeing here. Oracle basically hit right into the top, and this is the same situation that you're seeing with NVIDIA. So don't be so gung-ho to believe that NVIDIA is bouncing, even though the earnings report was great, all the chips are sold out. AI is going to do wonderful things. All of those things are probably true, but nevertheless, the level of valuation that we have to deal with in the current market environment is absolutely insane. I've talked about this before, but Shiller PE, margin debt, Warren Buffett indicator. But out of all of them, Shiller PE is probably the easiest way to understand what's going on with the stock market. And we are currently selling at the most expensive stock market in the history of the stock market. That's the bottom line. I know you said that the 2000 top was a little bit higher, but I've discussed that before. And at that 2000 time, there was quite a significant dilution between price and earnings, because at that time there were quite a few companies within the S&P index that didn't have any earnings at all. Remember the tech companies? So because of that, their actual real earnings adjusted PE ratio, at least according to my calculations, was approximately 35. So we are sitting in the most expensive market of all time, higher than 1929 top, higher than 1966 top, higher than 2000 top. 2007 top was not even close to where we are today, right? And 22. So we are in a speculative bubble, AI speculative bubble, everything bubble, whatever you want to call it. Just understand very clearly that we are in a bubble, and this particular bubble is going to burst. But this bubble going to burst only when our nuclear exchange will develop. Remember the nuclear exchange that we mentioned earlier between Russia and China alliance and NATO members? By the way, I published a book on the subject matter that explains everything in great detail. I could talk about it for hours here, but the link is going to be in the description of this video. If you're interested, please click on it, get the book. I'm going to outline everything, including what you have to do in order to protect your finances, protect your family, and protect your life. Where you have to be and what you have to do. Because the entire Northern Hemisphere is going to be annihilated, destroyed. There's going to be nothing left. And you have to move. You have to get out of here. And you have to make preparations now, because that particular time frame is coming very, very soon. And I explained to you exactly why it's going to happen in the summer of 29, and that has to do with the stock market cycle and the war cycle coming together at the same time and indicating in a very clear fashion exactly where that particular top is going to be and exactly when that nuclear exchange is going to happen. So I described all of that in my book. Click on the link, get it, and then you can get all of that information. So we do showcase our work once in a while. We've done a QQQ analysis. This is one of our 52 mega cap stocks that we follow. So I'm going to go and jump into it and do that very quickly. Okay. So what you're looking at is Qs. I'm going to describe it very quickly. Otherwise, I'm not going to have enough time. I'm going to bore a lot of people to death. What you see is a very simplistic representation of very complex mathematical concept where we scan the market in three-dimensional space, we calculate the market, we identify these cycle composites, cycle clusters, and you can look at some of my prior videos in order to determine or get a much better explanation. Or you can sign up for one of our webinars. Next one is coming up on December 4th, I believe, if that's Friday. And there I describe in great detail the mathematical work behind it and what we do in order to calculate it. But what you're seeing is basically Qs as well as the market will top out, or perhaps already topped out. You can get our free trial until the end of November. Thereafter, there's going to be no free trial. A link in the description of this video. but basically it is topping out at this mid-cycle top, and once this mid-cycle top is achieved, it's going to decline into this mid-cycle bottom into the fourth quarter of 2026. It's going to be quite a significant decline, an important decline, not the end of the world decline, but nevertheless quite a few people will be taken out by this decline. And once this decline is over, it's going to bounce once again into the 2029 timeframe. So that's what the overall forecast for the Nasdaq, not for the Nasdaq, well, Nasdaq Qs, basically same thing. Here's what I wanted to show you. This is yet another representation of our mathematical work. As you can see, the Nasdaq has clearly completed. I know it doesn't make any sense to you, but from our perspective, the Nasdaq and the Qs have completed the bull market right here, and the decline is essentially beginning. And this lines up very well once again with that December 13th time turning point, because when this particular bounce, let's go back to the Dow Jones, for example, one more time. So when this particular bounce, when this particular bounce completes itself, then the market's going to be set up for the next leg down. The next leg down is going to be quite substantial, and that lines up very well with our December 13th time turning point. That's another reason why we believe that there's going to be some sort of very bad exchange between Russia and the United States. Okay, let me see what else I wanted to talk about today. Let me close this and go back to, so we talked about, okay, so there's no turning back now on AI. Firm says it boosts S&P 500 forecast. This is yet indicative, when we see headlines like this, is essentially when you know that the psychological setup of most investors is such that everybody has bought onto it. Everybody believes that the bull market will continue, and there's going to be absolute no fear of the bear market. As a matter of fact, last week we talked about Michael Burry, and this particular RGC Capital was making fun of him as an investor, even though Michael Burry is probably more well-researched, better researched than most people on Wall Street, and he's absolutely right in his decision to short. His timing was wrong, but that's something entirely different. But from the fundamentally speaking, as I just showed you, the stock market sitting at the most important or most expensive ratio that it has ever been in the history of the stock market since it's began trading in May 19th of 1790. That's how well I know the history of the stock market, to kind of beat my own chest a little bit, right? Okay, so we already looked at some of these articles, so I wanted to kind of go over them one more time and come to an analytical conclusion that that takes us into the fact that once again I anticipate a military strike by the United States. Perhaps through its proxy Ukraine, but more likely directly, because if it's going to be a decapitation strike, it has to be significant. So it's not going to be done by Ukraine, it has to be done by NATO, and of course by default we know that NATO is the United States, with some of the vassal states running around and doing what they're being told to do, no question about it. Okay, so let's look at these facts. We have a situation in Venezuela where there's going to be a military buildup of pretty good proportions, but not too significant, right? Where the news cycle has been to the point where the United States is preparing a military strike on Venezuela to get Maduro out, get somebody else in, and take over the oil rights, right? So that's the unwritten rule or unwritten want of the Trump administration. It's the oil. It's all about oil. It's not about drugs. It's not about crime. It's all about oil, right? So hopefully you're smart enough to understand all of those things. On the flip side, we have a situation where apparently the United States the situation in Ukraine has simmered down somewhat. It's not in the news cycle as much, right? And now the United States or the Trump administration is coming out with news that there's going to be a peace plan that is being rejected by the Ukrainians, correct? Even though we all know that the United States has complete control of Ukraine and President Trump can end this war with one phone call. But we know for a fact that they're not interested in ending this war. This is a big geopolitical game being played of hegemon, which is the United States, versus China, versus Russia, and for the purposes of domination of the global economy, correct? So you have to understand that. So when we take all those factors into consideration and the way that the Trump administration has acted in the past against Iran, Hamas, Yemen, we can ascertain that something is being cooked behind the scenes, and with this December 13th time turning point, we can very easily ascertain that most likely outcome, because this is going to cause a significant disruption in the markets, and this is what we show in our mathematical work as well as our volatility index VIX calculations. There's going to be a spike in the middle of December. Okay, so when we combine all of those factors, we can ascertain that the only possible outcome, and I hope I'm absolutely wrong about this, because this would be absolute sheer insanity on the part of the United States, that there's going to be an attempted decapitation strike against Russia. And Russia is going to respond in such a firm and powerful way, perhaps even nuking some of the assets, perhaps even within the United States, that it's going to cause a major turning point and disruption in the Western world. Okay, so that's our analytical conclusion. Tomorrow we have a killer show as well. We're going to have a lot more information on this subject matter. I encourage you to come back, subscribe, and I'm pretty much believe you're going to be very happy that you did. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day ahead, and we'll be back with another update tomorrow. Bye-bye.